Hey, everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hey everybody, Angela here. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day and thank you for taking time to listen to the pod. Today we have an awesome question. It was sent to me as a voice message at addictionunlimited.com. And unfortunately, the caller did not leave her name, but the question is phenomenal. And I think you guys will really enjoy it too. By the end of this recording, you will definitely have a little insight to my crazy head and how I think, as scary as that may be. So let's go ahead and get to the question. I love this one. It says, do you have any favorite mantras or quotes that you repeat to yourself daily? And firstly, important to say, I love quotes and mantras. I am a very positive energy person. You know, I have my demons that I battle with, insecurities and fears, much like everybody else does. And it's extremely important to me that I am consistently sort of retraining my brain to support more positive thought processes, to make sure that I'm always looking forward and not looking backward and not dwelling too much on past things. In the self-help world, you hear a lot about kind of your subconscious mind, and the majority of what happens to us, the decisions we make, how we live our lives on a daily basis, really stems from our subconscious. And the thing with the subconscious is it really wants to keep you in a place of what it feels like is safe. And the unfortunate part of that is it's kind of what we always refer to as the comfort zone, right? Like you have to get out of your comfort zone. You can't grow without getting out of your comfort zone. And your subconscious is kind of your comfort zone. Like its job is to keep you in that comfort zone because that's where it's comfortable and that's what it knows. That's what it knows to be safe. So it wants to keep you there. And that's why it's so challenging when we decide we want to change our lives or change our habits. It's really, really difficult because our subconscious mind always wants to crop up and tell us to stay where we are. You know, changing feels dangerous to your subconscious. So it pops up in many different ways too. You know, like you might start talking yourself out of something. Like maybe you decide you're not happy at your job and you want a new one. And once you start thinking about it, you feel kind of energized and maybe you'll start looking online. Well, let's just see what's out there. Maybe I'll just call a headhunter and see if anything's available. And you start doing those things. And next thing you know, you'll have these thought processes that creep in going, you know what? Maybe it's not such a good idea. Maybe now's not the right time. Maybe I really shouldn't change jobs. Maybe I'm not being grateful for the job I have, whatever the case may be. All these things will start creeping in. I don't have time right now. I don't have time to redo my resume. I haven't interviewed in years. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Like all these things will creep in and start talking you out of it. That's kind of your subconscious mind wanting to keep you in the comfort zone, keep you where it knows you are safe and what feels safe to it. So that's why change is so challenging. So mantras, quotes, all these things, I always say feed your brain, right? I'm constantly feeding my brain. I have to feed my brain the information that I want it to have, especially when it comes to changing habits and changing our lives, because those are not easy things to do. It takes a lot of conscious effort and energy, and it takes time. And to be honest, that's why most people don't do it. That's why most people aren't successful in those situations because it takes time, energy, and there's no quick fix, right? So consistently feeding your brain the information that you want it to have and consistently visualizing your future, what you want it to be like, thinking about those things, setting goals, making sure you're in action, all of that stuff is very, very important when you want to start doing things differently than you've done in the past. So I have a few mantras, I think 4 really, that are so important to me that I use literally all the time on a daily basis, most of them really on a daily basis. But these are kind of my go-to things. Whenever I'm stuck in my head thinking about something, these are my go-tos. So the first one is from, oddly enough, a Matt Damon movie. The movie was called We Bought a Zoo, and I'm pretty sure it was the movie. And it's Matt Damon and his young kids, and they buy this zoo. The mom has passed away. I don't even know if I'm spoiling anything. I don't know if it shows that in the trailers. If this is a spoiler, I apologize. It was a really great movie. I enjoyed it so much. And there was this part where he takes his kids to the diner where he first met their mother. And he's telling the story about being really nervous to approach her, right? He wanted to ask her on a date. He saw her sitting there, and this is a prime example of kind of that subconscious and how it'll kick in. So his mind was telling him, maybe you shouldn't ask her out. He's being fearful of rejection. What if she says no? I'll be embarrassed, all these things. And he said, all it took was 20 seconds of courage. And I love that, 20 seconds of courage. The smaller you can break something down, the smaller pieces you can break something down into, the easier it is to achieve, right? Like when I got sober, somebody said, when you get hit by a train, it's not the caboose that kills you. And I loved that, right? Because the first drink isn't the one that kills me. It's 25, 30 drinks later that always gets me in trouble. So what it did for me is it made me realize it's only the first drink that I have to not have. If I don't have one, then I'm good. I don't have to have the other 30. So it made it small. It broke it down into a piece that was just small enough that I felt like, well, gosh, I can do that. I can not have one. That's easy. Same thing with 20 seconds. I can do 20 seconds. 20 seconds is not big. That's not long. I can pull that off for sure. 20 seconds of courage. And I live by this. Anytime I have to do something that I really don't enjoy doing, of course, right? Whether it is cold calling, right? Because as an interventionist, I'm always looking to build my referral sources. I always need treatment centers. I always need treatment centers that specialize in different things. So I spend a fair amount of my time just Googling treatment centers and calling them and asking questions. And honestly, this doesn't always go well. It's kind of interesting because it gives me an insight to what families must deal with, or maybe they're weird to me because I say I'm an interventionist and that throws them off. I don't know. But a lot of times these phone calls are really uncomfortable for them and for me. And oftentimes they don't even have a lot of information, but I'm always cold calling. That's my point. Sorry, I ramble. I'm always having to call people I don't know and talk to people I don't know. And it's awkward. Nobody loves to do that. I guess some people do. Extroverts probably love it. I'm a total introvert. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I want to hide on my computer or in a book and, live happily ever after with me and my dog. But it's not realistic. So whenever I am having to do these things that are really awkward and uncomfortable to me, that's what I think, right? If I have to cold call somebody or call somebody I don't know and I really don't want to do it, I just sit and think it's 20 seconds. 20 seconds of courage is all it takes. It's just dialing the phone and letting the person answer and just getting over that initial, hi, how are you? I'm Angela. I'm whatever. Getting over, it's just 20 seconds. And when I think of it in those terms, then something clicks in my head where I'm like, hell yeah, 20 seconds. I can kick 20 seconds ass. Like that's easy. I can do that. And then it feels achievable and I can do it, right? I get a lot done with that mantra, 20 seconds of courage. So the second one I really try to be mindful of, and something, honestly, I'm quite proud of, certainly in my private practice, but just as a person, because I think it did take a lot of practice for me. It didn't come naturally. I'm a really good listener. I like to listen. I think listening and showing someone that respect is very powerful. And I think it shows the person you're listening to that they are valuable. And I really love that too, because I love people and I love for people. Certainly when they're around me, I want everyone to feel loved and valuable and empowered, and I think really actively engaging in listening when they're speaking, I believe is one of the kindest, most respectful things you can do for a person. So I really practiced this a lot, especially as a coach. You You can't help somebody if you're constantly talking over them, or if as they're talking, all you're doing is formulating in your head what you're going to say. Because at that point, you're not listening. You're waiting for your turn to speak. And those are very different things, right? You have to listen to what the person is saying. This is also, for me, this gives me direction. I can't assume that I know what your intention is. I can't assume that I know what you're saying or I know what you mean. I have to listen to what you're telling me to figure those things out. And that gives me direction, right? Then I know I have a starting point. I know where to go from there in conversation. So the quote is, never miss a good opportunity to just be quiet. And I don't know where I got it. I found that years ago. I remember reading it and just thinking it was brilliant. And I just so appreciated it. You know, another part of it for me in just being quiet is I talk a lot, obviously. A lot of my work is talking. Like I have to listen to myself all the time. And sometimes it is so nice to just sit down and freaking be quiet. Sometimes I get tired of hearing me too. And, for a long time in 12-step meetings in the rooms of AA, I didn't share for a long time. It goes around the room and each person shares their thoughts. Hi, I'm Angela. I'm an alcoholic. And then I share my thoughts, whatever the topic is. And for many, many years of my sobriety, I wouldn't share. I would just pass, and I would say, hi, everybody. I'm Angela. I'm an alcoholic. I'm just going to listen today. And then it goes right over you. Thanks, Angela. Glad you're here, whatever. And honestly, I think you could probably count on my hands how many times I shared in a meeting in 10 years. Like I just didn't share because I so reveled in that opportunity to just sit down and be quiet. I wanted to soak in the information. I wanted to learn from the people around me. And I don't want to talk over people. I don't want to do the majority of talking in a conversation. I like a conversation to be two ways, right? It should be an exchange of information. It shouldn't be a monologue, right? One person shouldn't be doing the majority of the talking in any conversation. It should go back and forth, a duo, not a solo. And I do find a lot of people like to have that monologue, right? They just like to hear themselves, and that's fine too. I'll listen, but it's something that's just really important to me to actively listen, but also really important to me to have those opportunities to just be quiet myself and quiet my mind and just be present in the moment, right? And if I'm always talking and thinking about what I'm going to say instead of listening to someone, then I'm really not so present in that moment. And that's important to me. So that was number 2. Okay, number 3 is probably my most favorite. And part of that is because it's from one of my most favorite people. It's from Oprah, who many of you know is one of my favorite people. And I think I've got this right. I saw it a couple of years ago and I felt like it was an absolute life-changing moment when I read this. And she said, "You get in life what you have the courage to ask for." And I love that. That is so true and so important. And I spent so much of my life not asking for what I needed or what I wanted. I spent so much of my life in fear and feeling not worthy and with no self-esteem. And another thing I talk about a lot is, as people, we have this tendency, when we feel fearful, we have this tendency to shrink to match our fear, right? Instead of sort of growing to be courageous and get through fear, we shrink to our fear. So if I have a phone call that I'm uncomfortable with, or I'm fearful of how the conversation is going to go, then my natural response is to procrastinate, right? Not make the phone call. But that's not okay. That's shrinking to my fear. I don't want to shrink to my fear. I don't want to play into my fear and give it power. I want to grow to match my courage. And that goes back to 20 seconds of courage. It takes 20 seconds of courage, but I have to ask for what I want and need, or I can't get it. And then we go on like we don't advocate for ourselves and we don't ask those questions and we don't get what we need. And then we get mad at people for not providing us what we need. But it's not fair to think that people can read your mind. You have to ask. You have to communicate clearly what you need and what you want and what's important to you. And I think about this not only in my sobriety, but in my life and in my relationships, in my friendships, as a boss, as a business person, as a person building a company. Like, I have to be mindful that I have the courage to ask for what I need and what's important to me in that moment. And that includes asking for help when I need it, or asking questions when I don't know something. Those things take courage too. I don't by any stretch think I know everything. I want to know everything, which is why I read and research so much. But there's a lot that I don't know, and nothing in the world makes me happier than having someone to learn from. I love to learn. And that goes back to the second one, which was never miss a good opportunity to just be quiet. Because I can't be learning from someone if I'm so busy talking. I have to be quiet and let someone lead me and teach me and give me guidance, right? The last one for me is be a little braver. This goes right in line with 20 seconds of courage and right in line with you get in life what you have the courage to ask for. It's the same thing. Be a little braver. Be a little braver. I spent my whole drinking life being so fearful of everything. There were so many things I wanted to do and places I wanted to go. And I was so scared because my self-esteem was just in the gutter, right? I had no self-esteem. I had no self-confidence at all. I was so insecure. So I would always shrink to my fear, and I would always let my fear talk me out of doing the things that I wanted to be doing. And I hated it. It was awful. I remember one time when I lived in Los Angeles, and this was in the 90s, right? And swing dancing was really huge. And I love dance, any kind of dance. I'm obsessed with dance. I love watching people dance. I am not one to go out on a dance floor and just dance. That won't happen. I did when I was younger, probably because I was drunk, but I certainly don't now. But I love organized dance where there are steps. And I love watching people do that. And in the 90s, swing was really huge. And I lived in Hollywood, and there was a place not too far from me in Los Feliz, I think, or Silver Lake, one of the two, that had swing dance lessons. And I wanted so badly to take swing dance lessons. I just thought it sounded so cool and so much fun to actually have something to do when you would go out instead of just going out to a bar and sitting around drinking. I thought, gosh, how much fun would it be to actually go and be able to dance and just have fun, I drove all the way to the bar and I was so excited, and I had hyped myself up all day long getting excited about doing these swing dance lessons, and it was going to be such a great time. I got all the way to the bar. I literally pulled in the parking lot and all my fear kicked in. What are you doing? You're going to embarrass yourself. You have no idea what you're doing. You don't have anybody to do this with. You don't have a partner. What if they pair you up with somebody creepy? All these things just started kicking in, and I literally pulled out of the parking lot and left. And it truly was a really low moment for me because I felt terrible. I was so mad at myself for doing it because I wanted to take those lessons so badly, and I just could not get up the courage to go in. And it was shortly after that I came across that be a little braver. And that's the instance, that story that I just told you is the time that I always think about with that mantra, be a little braver, because I wish I would have known that then. Or even the first one, 20 seconds of courage. I wish I would have had that in my back pocket in that moment when I pulled up at that bar, where I could have just said to myself, 20 seconds of courage, 20 seconds of courage. Just get in the door and everything will be fine. Just get in the door. But I didn't have that, right? So it's all those little things that I think about over the course of my life, especially when I was a drinking person. All those things that I so wanted to do, or trips I wanted to take, or parties I wanted to go to, or whatever. And I would always talk myself out of it because my fear would get the best of me. And in my sobriety, I don't want to live like that. I want to have courage. I want to be a little braver. I want to be able to push myself outside my comfort zone and get into that spot where I'm uncomfortable and scared, because that's when I'm stimulated, and that's when I am in the midst of my best growth, when I'm outside that comfort zone. If I'm not scared in what I'm doing in my life, then I'm not doing it hard enough, right? I'm not pushing myself hard enough. It should be scary. And for me, that's how I feel like I know I'm growing and I'm continuing in this process of being a person in recovery and being a person that continues to grow their life and make it bigger and make it happier and getting healthier and getting stronger. And all of that to me is so empowering. And really, that's what sobriety is about for me. And for you, maybe it's not sobriety, right? Like my alcoholism was just the catalyst that got me to a place of creating change in my life. Alcoholism is just what got me there. That was the thing that popped up that said, hey, listen, you got to do something different. And it was serious enough that I had to pay attention and I had to be dedicated to making changes. I couldn't just say, okay, I'm going to be different now, and then 2 weeks later slip back. Like I had to really take it seriously and be committed. And that was the first time for me, right? So maybe your catalyst is something different. Maybe it's not alcoholism or addiction. For me, that's what it was. And I'm so grateful for those times. And I just don't want to live with those old habits of that unhealthy person. I want to have new habits as a now healthy person. So those are my mantras. I hope you guys loved that. I loved this question. I just thought it was so creative and so cool. And you are welcome to go on addictionunlimited.com and leave me a voice message or DM me on Insta, whatever you want to do. Please keep it coming, you guys. I hope you love this episode. Send me your questions and we'll see you next time.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.